Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight at our LGBTQ plus town hall. I'm John Kaywood, a community relations specialist with the Office of Veteran Services. It's great to come together and have a dialogue, not only about the experiences of being a service member in the LGBTQ plus community, but also how we can address the community-specific needs. We are lucky to have a great group of experts joining us tonight. But first, let's go over some ground rules. We will go around to each of our panelists here in a second, and then we will move into the question and answer portion of this evening. It is being recorded too, so this will definitely be used as a tool for those that could not be in attendance for tonight. If there are any questions or personal remarks, hold them till later or put them in the chat without disturbing the flow of this conversation. If we do not get to your question or it's more of a private conversation, you can email our office at veterans@boston.gov, and we will have any answers for you there. And to any members that may be viewing this from the press, please respect the confines of this town hall and the personal nature in which some participants may respond. Without further ado, let me toss it over to Commissioner Robert Santiago and Councilor Ed Flynn for some remarks.
Thank you, John, and good evening, everyone. Like John said, I'm Rob Santiago. I am, and I say with pride, the first openly gay Commissioner of Veteran Services here in the city of Boston. I want to welcome all our LGBTQ Veterans Roundtable discussion panelists as we close out the 2021 Pride Month. You know, there were many times that I've been asked, why do we do an LGBTQ Veterans Town Hall? And why we need to tell our stories and have our own event? The answer to me is quite simple. We as LGBTQ veterans have been historically marginalized, discriminated against, and criminalized. When I joined back in 1988, we still had the full ban, and it was still very much in effect. I knew I was gay out of high school, but I joined the Navy regardless to not just get out of New York City and tour the world, but also to sort of kind of like man up. And the Navy, I believe, offered the best of all worlds for me. But during my first tour, I have seen firsthand the witch hunts against the LGBTQ service members who served with honor and distinction. So then for many years after that, I served for the rest of my career under the cloud of don't ask, don't tell. In December 21st of 1993, the Clinton administration issued the Defense Directive 1304.26, which directed that military applicants were not to be asked about their sexual orientation. This policy, as I stated, is known as the don't ask, don't tell policy. That was just a smokescreen that did not prevent discharges of LGBTQ service members. Then finally, on September 20th of 2011, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So this September 20th will mark the 10th anniversary of the repeal. So stay tuned for events celebrating this date as well. But since then, the LGBTQ service members have served proudly, being who they are. Last year, I remember having the privilege of speaking to the sailors on board the USS Constitution during their Pride Month event. To start, I asked those LGBTQ crew members to please raise their hands if they felt comfortable. It was a moment that, quite frankly, I'll never forget. I didn't think I would get emotional, but I did. About 10% of the crew raised their hands. And that's definitely a moment, seeing those hands being raised, that will stay with me forever. But a moment like that, many years earlier, by me as a crew member, could not have happened. As a matter of fact, during my retirement ceremony, I received legal advice not to recognize my fiance back then, now my husband, in my military retirement speech. But I also have to say that there's still a lot of work to be done, as evidenced with the prior commander-in-chief, who in just a flip of a switch in 2018, declared transgender service members a disruptive burden on the military. Even though the Joint Chiefs of Staff valued their proven capability and did not see them as a disruption to unit cohesion. In that same flip of a switch, President Joe Biden revoked that memorandum with an executive order on January 25th, 2021, just days after taking office, stating that all Americans who are qualified to serve in the armed forces should be able to serve. While I faced many challenges throughout my 20 years in the military service, being gay is, to be honest with you, one of the least interesting things about me. For many years, we, LGBTQ veterans, served bravely in silence, but I can speak for many when I say, while we face many challenges, I, for one, have no regrets of my service. So this evening, I'm looking forward to hearing our roundtable of speakers and the stories of those participating in this evening's event. And right now, I would like to turn it over to a very good friend of mine who chairs the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee on the Boston City Council, who's also a fellow Navy retired veteran and a shipmate, Councilor Ed Flynn.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Santiago. It's great to be with you and your dedicated and professional team at the City of Boston. Want to acknowledge your team and say you guys do a wonderful job for every veteran. You work tirelessly and with professionalism. So I want to acknowledge your department, Rob. I also wanted to say thank you to Chief Marty Martinez as well, who I work closely with on a lot of public health related issues across the city. So you guys have an excellent team, and just want to acknowledge the City of Boston employees. As we celebrate the Pride Month in June, it's almost July now, but we recognize the work and sacrifice of LGBTQ veterans and their families, the sacrifices that they made in order to serve our country and ensure that their right to live and to love who they want to is protected, and that they are being treated equally and fairly in and out of the military. As Rob mentioned, I also was in the military in '87 when gay and lesbians could not serve openly. And I was in the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was there when it was under Obama, actually, when it was withdrew and gay and lesbians could serve openly. And that's when I got out of the military at that time. So I, like you, I saw society change. I saw our military change, which was a positive sign. But then we also saw, even though we made great progress, but we also saw those protections and laws can be taken away, as they were taken away under the Trump administration. So that's why we need to have ingrained policies and measures in place to ensure that we have long-lasting protections and laws in place for our LGBTQ members and groups who are facing discrimination, including our immigrant neighbors as well. So I'm committed to working with our Office of Veterans Services. I know our dedicated staff here from the VA, Boston Health, incredible job during the pandemic, helping veterans. And I most importantly want to say to my fellow veterans, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice and for your family's sacrifice as well. And although I didn't experience what you experienced, I know you've experienced a lot of discrimination serving in the military, but I want to say thank you to you and want to say thank you for your service and sacrifice.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Flynn and Commissioner Santiago. Very poignant statements, and really shows how far we've come, but how much further we have to go. So we really appreciate those words. Let's kind of jump into our panelists tonight. We're going to start off with Colleen Sloan. Dr. Sloan is a clinical psychologist at the VA of Boston's healthcare system and assistant professor of psychiatry at Boston University School of Medicine. Go Terriers. She serves as a chair of the VA Boston Interdisciplinary Transgender Treatment Team and is one of the VA Boston's LGBTQ plus veteran care coordinators. Dr. Sloan is involved nationally and locally in education, training, and consultation in sexual and gender minority veteran health. Dr. Sloan, lead us off.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. So I think what I'd like to do to start off is just to talk a little bit about what VA has done nationally and then move my way into what VA Boston has been doing locally. I appreciate what some of you have said in terms of policy changes, because certainly those are important. We need these top-down approaches to change cultures where individual people exist and work and serve. And that's certainly true for what I've heard from our veterans who receive care at VA Boston is even LGBTQ veterans who are serving after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell still experience negative experiences, marginalization, discrimination, and prejudice based on their identities. So while I feel extraordinarily proud about the work that we've done at VA, after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 2011, VA developed a national, at the time was named the LGBT program. More recently, they were able to expand their name to now be LGBTQ+, of course, to be more inclusive to identities that may fall outside of that umbrella. That national program was very important. It was connected to VA central office, and they were tasked with developing policies at a national level that were then, of course, adopted and utilized and implemented at a local level. Two of those policies I'll talk about are the two VHA directives on the provision of care when working with, one is a provision of care when working with transgender and intersex veterans, and the other is when working with veterans who have lesbian, gay, bisexual, or related identities. These policies are important and they kind of just describe what are necessary at individual VA facilities. So those things are quite helpful, of course, because prior to the adoption of national policies, local facilities were kind of operating in a bit of a piecemeal fashion and by local guidance. So you can imagine, even though we say one VA is one VA, Boston would have a very different experience from a veteran who's receiving care at a facility in Alabama, for example. And these tends, to be related to the local culture and kind of the attitudes towards sexual and gender minority identities. So that was the first part is developing those directives. I'll talk a little bit more about those directives in a moment, but the other, the program that was launched by this national program was the development of the LGBTQ+ Veteran Care Coordinator Program, which requires that all VA facilities have at least one LGBTQ+ Veteran Care Coordinator. Thankfully at VA Boston, we have three, one designated for each of our campuses. For those of you who are not familiar, VA Boston is quite large as a healthcare system. We have three main hospital campuses and then a number of community-based outpatient clinics. Shifting back to our national policies, so on the provision of care for transgender and intersex veterans, this actually specifies what are considered medically necessary treatments that are available as part of the medical benefits package for trans and gender diverse veterans, mostly around a gender affirmation process or a gender transition. So things that are available within VA currently are mental health evaluations for hormone therapy, gender affirming hormone therapy, gender affirming prosthetic devices, mental health treatment for co-occurring presentations, primary care that's gender affirming, all services that are gender affirming, and within the past couple of years has been able to expand those services to vocal coaching or speech therapy, as well as gender affirming prosthetic devices. So we're really excited that we have a good medical benefits package, but certainly not complete. As you may have noticed, I didn't mention any gender affirming surgical procedures. So previously and currently that is not part of the medical benefits package, but you may have heard recently that VA Secretary McDonough just made a recent announcement that the rule change process to change that medical benefits package and to eventually include gender affirming surgical procedures, that process is now started. So we are feeling very excited and hopeful that this will move forward. And we're thinking that perhaps within the next few years, we're gonna see some exciting things happening that provide even more affirming care for our trans and gender diverse veterans. In addition to that, VA requires that all veterans, regardless of your identity, are treated with respect and dignity, and that all VA facilities are responsible for creating a welcoming environment for LGBTQ+ veterans. What this means is to ensure that we have visual cues within our medical facilities that are symbols of acceptance and affirmation for veterans who have LGBTQ identities. So things like VA-sponsored posters that depict rainbow dog tags and not campaigns, but kind of slogans and things of that nature to ensure that the environment itself is affirming. Veterans are to be addressed by the name that they choose to go by, regardless of whether or not that's the name that's listed in their medical record. This, of course, is incredibly important for our trans and gender diverse veterans who may go by a name that is different than their legal name and what's listed in the medical record, and likewise use the correct pronouns and identify themselves with. We have worked to create demographic fields that assesses a veteran's sex assigned at birth and their self-identified gender identity, so that we are connecting our veterans with medically necessary care that is related to their anatomy while also treating them with respect and ensuring that we do that appropriately. Additionally, we have a patient non-discrimination policy that exclusively prohibits discrimination based on someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. In addition, the definition of family is not exclusive to those who are legally or blood related to the veteran. So some of you may be familiar with the term family of choice, and this is certainly something that is more common in LGBTQ+ communities. So essentially, anyone who a veteran finds important and identifies as someone close to them and wants them involved in their medical care, that's considered family, and that flies. In terms of creating a welcoming environment, I do just want to mention that I think, although we sometimes work with active duty service members, there is kind of an understandable kind of perception that VA and DOD are inextricably linked, and certainly in some ways they are, and we're actually uniquely different. So one of the ways I think that we need to continue working is to establish ourselves with a reputation that is not just accepting, but affirming. I don't think that visibility is enough. We need to be going the extra mile, and I'm proud to be a part of that effort. Shifting a bit to the veteran care coordinator program. So the purpose of these roles at each individual medical facility is to assist any LGBTQ identified veterans who are possibly experiencing challenges in their care that may be related to their identities. In some ways, we function similarly to a patient experience coordinator or a patient advocate. Although we have a bit more kind of knowledge around marginalized identities, and we often partner with patient experience coordinators to help veterans who may be struggling or having challenges in their care. So for example, a trans or gender diverse veteran may come to a medical appointment, their provider misgenders them. That would be a great opportunity that the environment remains welcoming. In addition to that veteran-centered approach, we also are responsible for ensuring that the national directives regarding education and training and serve as a liaison between the national and the local programs. So in our roles, we actually report directly to our medical directors, which is at VA Boston. I'm very proud to report that we have an excellent working relationship with our medical director, Mr. Ng, who is incredibly supportive and excited about the initiatives that we're doing. For example, recently, we hosted a virtual Pride event just last week on Wednesday. It was well attended. It was the first one we've done ever. Ordinarily, VA Boston actually marches in the Boston Pride Parade, which is one of my favorite observances throughout the year. And it's one of the only times that both veterans and staff and providers actually unite and come together and march together. And it's also, for many of our veterans, the first time that they have ever been out in public as an out veteran and an out LGBTQ+ person. And to see the feedback from the audience just reminds us about how important this work is.
What you're saying, treating people with respect, kind of doing going full circle with it, not just treating, but also making sure you're speaking on behalf of their feelings and making sure that you're really treating the whole patient and not just physical, but the mental kind of, troubles that come along with it. So thank you so much for that. That was really fantastic. We're going to switch over to our next panelist, Vallerie Stein. Vallerie is a hearing officer for the Massachusetts State Department of Veteran Services. She makes judiciary findings in disputes over state veterans benefits. In her spare time, she serves as the Director of Advocacy for Victims of Abuse Ministry for the Evangelical Convent Church East Coast Conference, where she counsels victims and survivors of domestic and sexual assault. Vallerie, take it away.
Thank you, John, and thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about services for the Department of Veteran Services, and then I will talk about military discharge upgrades. So the Department of Veteran Services right now doesn't have any specific LGBTQ services, but we are dedicated to listening and hearing what the needs of our veterans and their families in this state are. But we do, however, have a program that's defined by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 115, and we have an annuity benefit as well for veterans who are 100% disabled or family members of veterans who have passed away, as long as you meet all the statutory requirements. In addition, the Chapter 115 programs are for veterans and their eligible dependents who are, their income is 200% the federal poverty level or below. And we have veteran service officers who work for the towns, many of which are on this call tonight, and you can connect with them and they can help you gather your application. We provide medical benefits, housing benefits, in addition to many other things. So we try to do our best to help everyone regardless of sexual orientation. But personal experiences that I've had as the hearing officer for the Department of Veteran Services when it comes to issues regarding the LGBTQ community, mainly have to deal with issues of sexual assault. A lot of veterans will disclose for the first time in a hearing that they have been sexually assaulted in the military, and those involved the circumstances of their discharge or just made their life miserable, which is very understandable. So DVS is very committed to creating a space where these experiences can be heard, because we know that as much as we can throw money at an issue, that compassion needs to be had in these situations, that there was a culture of shame that was created by discriminating against members of the LGBT community, and that this is a barrier for veterans and their families for getting the benefits that they not only need, but they deserve because of their hard work and dedication to our country, and every individual that's on this call tonight. So we want to make sure that we are having both trauma-informed services for our applicants and recipients of Chapter 115 benefits, in addition to making sure that we understand and recognize the barriers for the LGBTQ plus community in getting benefits. So we're committed to those conversations. We're committed to those conversations with our veteran service officers that serve in every town in Massachusetts. And they are a wonderful group of people as well, our veteran service officers, who are really committed to making sure that these veterans feel as comfortable and safe as possible. So thank you all for the veteran service officers on the call tonight. You guys do fantastic work, and I'm very happy to be able to work with all of you. But one of the barriers, if we talk about to getting veterans benefits, does include being discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, as we've talked about already. So DVS is not directly involved with any military discharge appeals process. There's a separate mechanism for that. So each branch of the military has their own appeals board. And very, very generally, what they are looking for is they're looking for witness statements that could explain circumstances of your discharge. They're looking for character references, both prior to your service and after your service, that can sometimes help, or statements from employers. And in addition, they also do look at your military record. They look at if there's any disciplinary actions, in addition, that were involved in the circumstances of your discharge. So when it comes to the appeals process, a good place to start, the VA actually has a really great website. It is va.gov/discharge-upgrade-instructions. Again, that's va.gov/discharge-upgrade-instructions. And you can fill out that worksheet and it will show you the forms that you may need to fill. However, we do recognize that this is a really overwhelming process, especially when there's a lot of the times there's trauma involved. And it's also just a very personalized story when you've been discriminated against. So we recognize those. So there are actually legal resources for veterans that are free, most of them, that can help you with your military discharge upgrade. The first of which is Harvard Law School has a veterans legal clinic, and you can find their website at legalservicescenter.org. Again, that's legalservicescenter.org, or their intake number is 617-390-2525. They do a lot of free services. In addition, they do a lot of appeals with the Chapter 115 program and DVS as well. So they're very knowledgeable about this subject area. In addition, there's Veterans Legal Services, and their website is veteranslegalservices.org. And then the last legal resource is the Boston Bar Association. They also have a specific military legal helpline, so they can direct you to someone who does work with veterans. And then the last thing that you can do when it comes to your military discharge, it's very important to have a copy of your military record. If you do not have a copy of your military record, I would encourage you to talk to your local veteran service officer, who can help you either look it up in our MRO system, or they can help you file and submit a request. Again, every town has a local veteran service officer. And if you don't know who your veteran service officer is, you can look it up on mass.gov or contact the Department of Veteran Services. And that's all I have. I know that was pretty brief, but.
No, thank you, Vallerie. Yeah, those resources are really key for those that are looking for what they have earned as a veteran. So thank you for kind of really laying those resources out pretty cleanly. And I know that someone will definitely be using those to get what they have earned. We're going to move on now to our keynote speaker of the evening, Chief of Health and Human Services, Marty Martinez. Chief Martinez serves as is in the Mayor's Office of Human Health Services for the City of Boston, the largest agency within the city government. Chief Martinez oversees 10 departments that include the Boston Public Health Commission, the Office of Recovery Services, and the Boston Centers for Youth and Families, and as well as our office, the Office of Veteran Services. Chief Martinez is currently leading the city's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and he's doing a fantastic job, and as well as the city's overall recovery for infrastructure. So thank you, Chief Martinez, for being here.
Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for being here and letting me join you all and being able to share a few words. Let me also thank Commissioner Santiago and the entire Office of Veteran Services office through the city, the work that you all do, John, Brian, and the entire team. Again, thank you for the service you give to our veterans every day, and that ongoing work. It's truly appreciated on behalf of the city, so thank you for that. And of course, thank you, Councilor Flynn, for always being here and always raising up the issues of importance to veterans. And thank you for that. I'm grateful for it. And of course, it was good to hear from Colleen and Vallerie, and to hear some of those services and resources that are here. That is much appreciated. You know, I'm here to join you tonight, both as the Chief of Health and Human Services that has the privilege of having the Office of Veteran Services within my cabinet, but more so to join you as I come from a lifelong commitment as a family of veterans. You know, I was born in a family that prioritized the needs and lives of all veterans, specifically Mexican-American veterans, which is the family that I grew up in, and thinking about the impact that service had in our community. I was raised by a mom who was committed to veterans in our community, specifically because her brother, my uncle Jerry Garcia, was killed in the Vietnam War. And he was killed at the age of 18. He was an interpreter, and her dedication to her younger brother meant that our family, from my earliest memories, could only do everything we could do to support veterans, their families, and Gold Star families as well, and obviously advocate for veterans in our community. And that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for that because it taught me the ability to celebrate and honor service. It taught me the ability to make sure that veterans returning home had the resources necessary to pursue the opportunities and the benefits that they are entitled to. And it also meant that not all service members got those benefits. And, you know, we did a lot growing up focused on advocacy and, you know, creating pathways for Latino veterans who may not have been as welcomed when they came back from service. And so for me, it's sort of what I grew up understanding and what I grew up living. And to be able to be here tonight related to the LGBTQ Veterans Town Hall, as an openly gay man that serves in the city administration, I know very much what it's like to ensure that all citizens and all residents have access to the resources they deserve, have access to the benefits that they're entitled to, and have voices that are advocating for them. You know, I've been grateful to be part of the town hall event for a couple of years and to hear the stories of veterans, of LGBT veterans who had to navigate a system that wasn't meant for them, who've had to navigate a system that many times did not create the pathways for them. And I've been grateful to hear Commissioner Santiago sort of talk through you know, what he experienced as both a Latino veteran, but also as a gay man and serving our country. And for me, I think there's no better work that we could do on the city side. There's no more important work we can do than making sure that the resources that Bostonians deserve, that they get. And then we break down the barriers to create real pathways for them to be able to access what they need to thrive. I say this a lot in my work that, you know, for many of the departments that do the work that I get to work with in the city, for many residents, you know, lots of times we turn to the city to get a basic need met. And we do that. And in some of the departments I work with in Health and Human Services, especially over the last year and a half, it's been about survival for many people, given what we've been through with COVID. But the Office of Veteran Services and the work that many of our organizations that support veterans in our community are setting up not only to help veterans get their needs met, but I would argue are helping to make sure veterans thrive. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're not, you know, thanking the men and women who serve so bravely by just making sure that the few boxes are checked and the few benefits are provided, but that we're making sure that we treat folks with respect and dignity as we create pathways for veterans to come home and be able to take advantage of the opportunities that will help them thrive for themselves, for their family, for their chosen family, and make sure that they can take advantage of those pieces and really have a fulfilling life. And so for me, as the Chief of Health and Human Services, I think a lot about that. What do we do? What do we need to do to create pathways? Not only it's healthcare, whether it's through the VA, but also legal representation to figure out discharge issues, figuring out benefits that maybe a veteran didn't know they could qualify for, or were afraid to figure out if they could qualify for as they come back and celebrate who they are. And so for me, I think we got to not only look at those organizations, but the city also has to make sure those pathways are there so that people can have the opportunities that they're afforded to. And that's the work that the city of Boston will continue to do. It's definitely the work that the Office of Veteran Services will continue to do. And it's definitely the work that I know everyone that's engaged in advocacy efforts for our veterans will also continue to be able to do. You know, it's ironic for many of us in the LGBTQ community, you know, we sort of have two lives. We have the timeline in the life of us where we were not openly gay, where we were closeted, where we were trying to figure out either who we were, and then once we knew, trying to tell the rest of the world who we were. And then we have the second part of our life where we get to live as we are and have all the complexities that everyone else has, but get to be who we are and be proud of that and be able to live that life. I'm grateful of being able to be an openly gay man, working for city government, to live with my husband in Dorchester, and to be able to celebrate all those things that are who I am. And I think every veteran should have the opportunity to be able to do that as well. And for veterans who live, I've heard veterans say this to me, friends and family, that 2 lives, being in active service and then after active service as a veteran, and trying to figure out how to navigate those. I can only imagine having to try to do that while also navigating my own identity and how that presents itself in our community. And so I just not only want to say thank you to our veterans for their service here in our community, but I also want to acknowledge the tremendous strength that LGBTQ veterans have had to dig deep to have in order to serve our country, who hasn't always been there for us, but then to also be a veteran that comes back home, that gets involved, that helps raise up our community. And I just thank you for digging deep into that strength. Every time we've had these town halls, I've heard folks speak, and I admire their strength and their courage, not only to tell their story, but to live the life they've lived, and to be able to help others along the same way. So for me, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to continue to do the work that we need to do. And I would say to anyone listening and anyone engaged, make sure you continue to push the city. Make sure you continue to tell the Office of Veteran Services or the Veteran Service Officers or me in City Hall or your elected officials like Councilor Flynn or our mayor, tell us what you need, and tell us what we need to do. We're public servants. And that means that we're here to make sure that we're advocating for and creating opportunities with and doing all that we can to make sure that our veterans, and specifically tonight our LGBTQ veterans, get what they need to not only survive, but to thrive in our community. So thank you so much for letting me be with you tonight. And again, I'm grateful for your service and all you've done. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief Martinez. Thank you to your family service as well, and what you continue to do as the chief. We're going to move on to our next panelist, Deborah Drew. Deborah is a U.S. Army veteran and a businesswoman. She conducts outreach to get young people interested in STEM fields, and also serves as commissioner on the Massachusetts Board of Registration in nursing. In this role, she was instrumental in getting the gender identity and gender expression added to the non-discrimination section of the updated regulations published in this year, 2021. Without further ado, Deborah, take it away.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you to everyone and the opportunity to be here. It's always, I think it's really great to do these sorts of town hall roundtables, so that we all have an opportunity to listen and also to sort of tell our stories. So a little background, just so we know who I am. I am a U.S. Army veteran. When I was in the United States Army, I was working with special weapons. I was, for a period of time, the youngest, lowest ranking person in the United States Army that was a B-side and authorized to arm and release U.S. special weapons. I was in the PRP program, the Personnel Reliability Program, which is very difficult to maintain. And I see heads shaking. So anyone who knows those terms understands is the level of sort of confidence that the United States government gave to me. And yet inside of me, I was somebody completely different than the person that I was when I was serving. And I was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I was, early 80s. And I remember when I finished my service and came home, I took my Class A's and hung them in the closet in the back. And I never looked at them again for about 10 years. I did nothing in reference to my previous service and that type of thing. And it wasn't until I had kids and I started to teach my children that they should know and love themselves, that I started to realize that I wasn't really knowing and loving myself and that type of thing. So that's when I sort of opened up and realized is that I had to deal with who I was and really sort of accept it. I come from a military family. My brother and his brother, my father and his brother were both Navy. I was Army. My younger brother went to Annapolis or to West Point, and just recently retired as a colonel from the United States Army. And my son is currently active duty, serving as a captain. It was kind of interesting because I had already transitioned when my son went to college and was getting his commission. And I remember going to the commissioning, and it was an interesting thing to look at the new diversity of our military, because as a transgender woman, I stood on stage next to a 2-star general and pinned my son's lieutenant's bars on him while he was being commissioned. And the next person that was on stage was there with her wife, and had her wife pin her bars on her when she was being commissioned also. And I remember sitting in the audience and thinking to myself, is that this really is what the United States military should be? That it should be every single person has the opportunity to serve and to do what they want to do, to be able to protect this great country that has provided us so much benefit and opportunity and struggle that we still have to work on. But it's something that should be there for everyone. And it was interesting because it was at that point that I started to realize, I was looking at my son and all of the young kids, and I started saying, you know what, there's more that needs to be involved. And I finally decided that, yes, maybe I should go ahead and put my paperwork into the VA and, get my disability recognized and everything, and started using the VA healthcare system. And it's kind of interesting because you talk about, Dr. Sloan was talking about symbols. And I remember you go to different places and you'll be standing there in front of the counter and the person will be working on the computer, and every once in a while, you'll see on the back of a computer the little pride flag stuck on the back of the computer, and you just go, oh, this is cool. I'm good here. And that type of thing. And it's so funny how just those little symbols can really sort of set the thing there. It's also interesting because it's, and anyone who's ever gone through, I had gone through and reads the health record of most veterans. In the top part, they have the table that's all the different things. And I know that, my gender diversity is about the 10th thing on the list. And so whenever I meet a new healthcare provider and they say, oh, hi, how you doing? They sit down and they start skimming the thing. I can see exactly when they read the line that says who I am. Because, most of the time they go like this, and, and then you can see them sort of stare because you don't see their eyes moving anymore. And I recognized after a few times it's not so much as that they're like going, oh, I don't like you, I don't know. I think it's more that, oh my God. And they're like going, so what was my training? Or did I get the right training? How am I supposed to do this? What am I supposed to do? And so me being a little bit of a crazy activist, I'm always like, hey, listen, you can ask me any question you want and I'll give you 2 answers. One, I'll actually answer your question, and one, I'll tell you whether you should ever ask anybody that question ever again, and things like that. So it's kind of funny because I think that's written in my records, because pretty much every time I go to an appointment, the healthcare provider goes, oh, and by the way, we have this trainee who's coming in with me and stuff like that. So it's good. But I do know is that with the VA, you have to ask. And that if you don't ask, then it's not something that just gets given to you. So you ask questions, you go to different people. And it's funny because I found a lot of times some of the best people to ask are other veterans that are sort of standing in the hallway waiting for something to happen. You go, hey, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh yeah, no, you got to go down here around the corner and it's over there. And you go, yay, and stuff like that. So, so with the healthcare, it's really great. And I also absolutely say, if you're going to be doing these type of things, you meet your town VA support person, you find out what their hours are and that stuff, even if you don't need anything, just to meet them face to face and that stuff. So it's really good. I do know every once in a while you run into people and you can pretty much tell in the beginning that they're not supportive of who you are. And a lot of times, there's nothing you can do in that very moment, but you sort of have to just step away and be like, okay. And then you talk to somebody after the fact, because engaging, you'll never get anywhere really good with that. So I'm always like, step back, take a different route, and that type of thing. So, but I've always been amazed. And in Massachusetts, yes, absolutely, it's an amazing VA. A lot of support with everybody, a lot of acceptance. And yes, I do know friends that are also in my community that are from different places in the country and have had horrible experiences and that. So it is something we have to continue to work on and to continue to pass. And it's funny because you talk about the don't ask, don't tell when it was overturned. It was funny because when that happened, I could almost feel a difference in the way the VA treated me. It was almost like someone flipped the light on and all of a sudden people started saying, oh, yes, okay. And I also found out that I could join the American Legion. Yay. Because they were like, oh yeah, well, they say it's good, you can be here and stuff. So, and then like we all noticed is that when the last administration was in there, some dark clouds came back. So, but I find that most people, if they act in a difficult fashion, it's less so out of malice and more so out of a little bit of fear and a lack of knowledge and stuff. So sometimes you just need to say, oh, no, my name is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think you kind of really illustrate how, how long the road has been, but, with your efforts and getting the gender identity and gender expression added to the non-discrimination section, that was huge. And, how long of a road we do have to go. And, those symbols are comforting, but, we shouldn't have to have a symbol to, make everybody feel accepted and feel like they're at home. So, but thank you, Deborah, for all that you do. We're going to pivot to our last speaker of the evening from the Boston Police Department, Tim Hancock. Tim.
Good afternoon, everyone. I heartily apologize for my tardiness. Being a Marine, if I'm not 15 minutes early, I'm late. And actually showing up 15 minutes late is just inexcusable. So if you could offer me your forgiveness, I would most gratefully accept it. I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I served on active duty from 1987 to 1991. I also was on the PRP, guarding special weapons aboard USS Midway out of Yokosuka, Japan. And we spent, they used to say we're hazy gray and underway, and I just couldn't believe the luck. Like, I joined the Marine Corps and they still put me on a boat. But, hey, what can you do? I had a fantastic time. It was an incredible experience. But when I did finally come to the realization that this wasn't a phase and it wasn't God testing me, that this is the way it is as a gay man, there were many hurdles to jump. And the idea of ever sitting and being a part of a collection of such esteemed people like this today wouldn't have ever darkened my wildest dreams. I'm grateful to be counted among you, and I'm excited to be able to pass this information along to friends on the job and friends in town who would very much benefit from a collection of professionals such as yourselves. I've been on the police department since 1995. I was the first openly gay man to graduate the Boston Police Academy. And much like you, Deborah, what I encountered then, and things have changed so much now, like, to be an openly gay man, like, it was a big deal. Like, there were people wrote about it. People, it was newsworthy, and I was like, geez, that's horrifying. But what I discovered is that people weren't afraid of me as a gay man, and they weren't necessarily homophobic at all. They were all afraid of saying the wrong thing. They didn't want to talk about it. Well, not that it made them so uncomfortable. They couldn't really care one way or the other. I mean, most of these people are family people and men and women who've got far bigger fish to fry than who I'm going home to or not. But what would invariably, in 8 hours sitting next to someone in a Crown Victoria, you wind up talking about stuff. And what I discovered is that they just like, so what, how do you know, what do I say? You know, when they realized that I wasn't sitting there waiting to chop their head off for saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, I was like, dude, we can talk about this. You know, having a high school diploma that I basically stole, and then coming out of 4 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, I didn't come off like a Nobel laureate. You know, I like to think of myself as intellectually approachable, you know, and so we could actually talk about things without worried about people getting upset or offended. And I was like, look, guys, I'm not that delicate. I realize I might look like a little flower, but I'm not. And so I'll be able to tell, and being able to let my peers know and let my colleagues know that I can say, I can tell when someone is trying to offend me. I'm that perceptive. You know, I might not be a detective, but I can figure that much out. And when someone is just asking a question, and like you said, that might be offsides, it might be, you know, some improper verbiage, I can just be like, okay, well, I hear what you're saying, and I think what you might be the way you might want to word that is this way, and to let people know that I'm not waiting for the gotcha, you know, and I'm proud to see where we've come, that where we can marry, and we are family. We can have our own families, and it's not governed by some parochial construct. Like, I think that's wonderful. It's miraculous, and I love that we can progress now to a point where, with patience and acceptance and patience on our part, on my part, as a member of the community, to say, don't be afraid to ask the question. I can tell when someone's trying to offend me. If you're not trying to offend me, I bet you won't. So go ahead, talk to me, because that's the only way we're ever going to dispel fear. You know, knowledge is the only thing that will undo this fear, and that's what it is. It's not that we're afraid we're going to come and eat their children. It's they're afraid of saying something to hurt our feelings. They're afraid of saying something wrong. And for 20, I just actually day before yesterday, I celebrated 26 years on the Boston Police Department, and wow, things have changed. You know, the Globe wrote an article when I graduated the academy, you know, and I just showed up. I didn't even do anything that great. But now, like men and women, people of every stripe, graduate our academy, and they're partners of pin their badges on at the graduation, and no one skips a beat. It's not like there's no clutching of pearls or anything like that. Everyone's just like, oh, cool. Well, I never went out. Wow, it's really great. And then they get to ask questions. It's like, to just be approachable. I'm currently serving at the Boston Police Range out here on Moon Island. So if my connection goes out, I apologize. It's like Ice Station Zebra out here. I just got transferred out here just about a year ago. I was on SWAT for 15 years. I was in B2 for a while over in Roxbury. I worked in Dorchester for a good chunk of my career as well, and I've also served in the academy as a drill instructor. And it was fantastic. And I've never had to file a complaint. I've never had anyone come at me trying to get me. I've always found that people are more than willing to meet me well over halfway. They're just, if I'm willing to give them a chance. And that's what I'm proud to be a part of this group of people, to be able to say, like, we're going to go out. We're going to let these people know who we are, that we're not monsters. We're not coming to change their world. We're just asking to be a part of it. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think I've rattled on long enough.
You know, I just want to thank everybody for being on the line. You know, one thing about our community is that we're very resilient, and that's another theme that I got from tonight. Is we all survived our service to our country because that's something that we felt we wanted to do and continue doing, and you know, also to continue our service once we once we came back home. So, with that, I just want to thank all our participants tonight, and also thank all the veterans and allies that we have on the line. Here at Boston Veteran Services, and Chief Martinez mentioned it, we remain committed to ensuring that we serve all our veterans and their families who call Boston home. Our continued mission is to ensure that our veterans thrive and they experience the quality of life that they deserve, through the benefits, services, and programs that they have earned. So if you want any other information, please contact us, or you could visit us at boston.gov/veterans. So again, thank you all very much. John?
Yes, I want to echo Commissioner's sentiments. Thank you all. Thank you, Colleen, Vallerie, Chief Martinez, Deborah, and Tim for joining us tonight. Thank you to everybody who's watching digitally on our social media outlets and on our YouTube. So for all those that were here today, you can share this video when we upload it there. And to anyone that is watching this video and does have questions, you can email us veterans@boston.gov, and we'll respond with whatever questions or concerns or possibly inquiries that you may have. So on behalf of the office, I want to thank everybody once again, and enjoy the rest of your